In this episode, I'm going to show you how I built a very cheap garden shed to keep all of our gardening equipment in and stored. The materials that we use is a fiberglass truck topper from an 8-foot bed, pallets, screws, 2x4s, and 4x4s. Also, there is a platform of concrete gravel on the ground that is going to comprise the floor. Now, if you look closely into this, you can clearly see that a truck topper that was removed from our Dodge farm truck is put on the top of this garden shed to make up the roof. When I was pricing out what it was going to cost to build one of these sheds, we're talking excess of $1,000, the roof being one of the most expensive parts of the build. So the truck topper really took care of a lot of the cost. The truck topper is a weatherproof seal, and it also has windows on every side, and the 2 side windows have screens in them. So what we did was we dug 4 holes and put these 4x4 posts down in the holes just a few feet. Then we made a frame around the top using 2x4s and a frame around the bottom using 2x4s. The 2x4s were 8-foot 2x4s, so on one side they stuck out 2 feet, and we left it at that length because we'll use that as like a garden lattice type of thing. Maybe put a little roof on there or a pergola type of situation. But inside of this garden shed, it is very tall. I am 6 foot tall, and I have my hand fully extended and I can't reach the top of the roof. So there's really good space in the shed, even though it's only about a 6x8 shed. One of the reasons we are building this shed is that it's also going to be our cat house. We're going to be getting some feral barn cats, and we're going to raise them in this garden shed. We'll create 3 individual boxes because we're going to get 3 cats, and then in these windows we will integrate a exit and entrance door so they can safely get into the shed without a coyote being able to chase them inside. They'll be able to go up a little platform, enter the shed safely, and have a place to get away from predators. Cats are going to be a crucial thing that we need on this property because mice and pack rats are a real big deal. I've been going to Flagstaff and getting pallets for free. So all of the walls on this garden shed were built completely free with the exception of screws. I did have to buy screws, some 2x4s and 4 4x4s. This entire project cost me probably at the most $200, including the gravel. One big problem when building with pallets is that you have to build with matching pallets because I always stack them too high, and if they're the wrong size then they don't match up with each other, and you can't have one stacked on top of the other one and one be short. So a big part of the process when building with pallets is selecting ones that are similar size. They can vary by an inch or less, but they need to be pretty close. So I have developed a pretty good method of building with pallets, and one of the things I do is, you see here, I'm cutting off all the tabs that are hanging over on the edge of the pallet. Those tabs are just in the way, and I want to be able to connect that stud that's on the outside of the pallet directly into the 4x4 post. So as you can see, when I put it into place, it goes snug right up to the 4x4, and I can put screws through and attach it very securely. Here it is. It's not attached and it's not buried down in the gravel yet, but I was just checking out the sizing to see how it fit. And in there you can see that there's nothing there. What I do is I take a 2x4 or 2x3 actually, because they're thinner, and I replace that end that I cut off. I have to cut them to size. So on this one you can see on the right there's nails in it, but on the left I put screws in to reattach the boards that I had cut to size to make it fit the size wall that I need. Just like in the back of the shed there, you can see there's about a 14-inch section that has an opening. That is because one stack of pallets, too high, is already attached in there, and it leaves that little gap. So what I needed to do was I needed to create a 14-inch pallet pretty much to fill in that gap, which I'll be doing really soon. It is actually finished now, but during this video, I just wanted to show you how I build with pallets and kind of how I go about it. So right now, I'm attaching that 2x3 to finish off the end of the pallet. Otherwise, it would just be boards that are dangling out there in the open, and I need things to attach to. So I grab a 2x3 board, stick it into place, and I put screws in and I reattach it just like the nails would be on a pallet. One big trick when doing this is that the boards are heat treated, I believe, after they assemble the pallet. So the nails that they put through go through very easily, but when I've tried to nail nails through, all it does is crack the boards. So with every screw that I put in to reassemble this pallet to the size I need, I pre-drill every hole. I know it sounds like a pain in the butt, but it really is worth it, and it makes it super easy. But what I do is I have an assortment of drills, so I keep the bit in one drill, and I just change drills out. I have one for drilling and one for putting the screws in. And that makes it such an easier process. I highly encourage you to try a two drill process if you're doing any kind of drilling and putting in screws, because it takes so much frustration out of the process. Now I'm just finishing off attaching every board with its own screw, and pretty soon I'll be putting this up into place. One of the things I have to do before I can put this up is that I need to attach the two pallets together. So what I do is I take short pieces of 2x3 and I put it down inside the pallet so that it sticks out, and I can slide the other pallet on over top of that. I'm attaching the 2x3 now, but what that does is essentially makes those outside pieces one nice big long piece, and it makes it very sturdy. Without that, the wall kind of wobbles a lot, and this added measure of strength, it really helps tighten everything up. And right now I'm just putting the two pallets together. Sometimes it's a little tricky to get the pallets together, so you might need a sledgehammer. I screw them into one pallet and then hammer the other pallet on top of it. Next, what I needed to do was clear the gravel out, because the 2x4 is actually going to sit down in the gravel about 3.5 inches, the width of a 2x4. I built that 2x4 frame on the bottom to hold all the gravel in, and the pallet is going to be going down into that gravel. So if you're going to do it this way, you want to get every little piece of gravel out of the way, because it will make your wall sit where it's not flush. You want it to be nice and straight on the outside and be able to go flush all the way up to the 2x4 and the 4x4. So sometimes it takes a little bit of encouragement with a sledgehammer, and you can get it in nice and tight. If it's hopefully you don't build your pallets too tight where you can't get them in. I like to build them nice and tight where it fits just perfect, because you don't want a big gap in any of your walls here. So this is just a method that me and a friend who have done a lot of building with pallets now came up with to build our walls for very, very cheap. I got all of these pallets for free. They used to cost me $1, so even at $1, you're talking all of the pallets for this would cost me $10, something like that. So it's a very cheap way to build. And the nice thing about this garden shed is that it's an unpermitted building. There's a 200 square foot maximum that you can build without a permit. So all of our buildings are all under that 200 square foot ceiling, and there is no permitting needed for any of the buildings that we're going to be working on the property. Sometimes it is nice to have two people. You can see me leaning on the pallet there to try to get it in place and make it nice and straight. It is kind of nice to have two people, but when you're working by yourself, you got to do what you got to do with what you got. So I just put in a bunch of screws. They all go through the side of the pallet into the 4x4 and into the 2x4 frame that is around the bottom and the top of the shed. All the way around, put plenty of screws in, and made it fit nice and tight and secure. You can see I'm doing a little bit of sledgehammering just to get that corner all the way in flush because I want it all to look nice and neat and straight. Now you might be thinking, hey, you have light shining through your pallets here. You just gonna have the dust and the wind blowing through your building? Well, for right now, yes, but I have come up with an idea on how I'm gonna close it up. So I'm gonna disassemble a whole bunch of these pallets and take the boards off. Just the boards, the thin boards on the outside, and I'll reattach them on the outside of the building over everywhere there's a gap, and I'll stagger them so it'll have a nice neat look. But that's going to require a lot of drilling and putting screws in, but it'll be a very cheap solution to make this thing so that the walls aren't having the wind blow through. The cats are going to need to stay warm in the winter because it does snow here quite a bit. We'll put in some heaters for them, and they'll have a nice, comfortable little cat house to live in. At this portion of the build, I started building a cat shelf that is going to go at the top of the shed. So up high, at the very top of those pallets, there's going to be a nice shelf that goes around where the cats can sit up there, look out the windows, maybe look for prey. This could be an awesome place for them to sit and hunt if they're looking for mice or rabbits. And all of those things is what we want the cats for. I do love cats and I want cats, but they are really to control the rats and the mice that are on the property. It's going to be a real struggle keeping the mice and rats under control. And from everybody, what I've heard is that all you got to do is get some cats and they will take care of the problem. And that's one of the reasons why this building isn't built so mouse and rat proof, because the cats are this is going to be their house. They're going to control the rodent situation inside of this shed very easily because this is where they're going to be housed and fed and get water and all of that. This is going to be their safe, secure location. Another thing we're going to be doing all around the property is giving them elevated perches in the juniper trees that they can jump up and get away from predators. If they're being chased by something like a coyote or a bobcat or something like that that's trying to get them, I do hear that they go missing from time to time, but we want to give them the best chance they got and give them a chance for survival. So we'll be installing perches around the property and showing them where they're at by feeding them on those perches so they know that there's safe places that they can get to if they're being chased by a predator. After I filmed this video, I still have some more work to do on the shed. I gotta put on a front wall and a door up front. That's coming soon. I'm going to be working on that in the next couple weeks because I got to get this shed all cleared up and sealed and ready for the cats to move in. But for now, thank you for watching. I'll see you again in a video real soon right down the road. If you have any questions about how I built a pallet shed, leave me a comment below and I will be sure to respond to any of the questions you might have about pallet building.